Hello, Soman.
You have to do hi.
Oh, I have to do hi. I can't say hello.
You can't say hello.
I can't say hello.
You've
Okay,
thrown-
now this is what we're going to talk about. I can't say hello. I have to say hi. What's that about?
I got totally thrown off. Oh, God.
This is how set in our ways we are. We can't even handle hi versus hello.
Well, here's a funny story, which is we keep getting one question in the mailbag and in person more than any other question. And it's said in this exact tone. It's, here, are you going to have guests?
Well, there's two different ways it's asked depending on who's asking it. If it's a listener asking it, it's like that. It's like, oh, are you going to have guests? And if it's someone we know, like a colleague, they're like, oh,
Yes.
I'm ready to come on whenever you want.
All right, you're going to have guests, right? I'm going to be your first guest, right? And I feel like we have this consensus that we've never actually discussed with each other, but I firmly believe we both have it, which is that we don't want guests.
It's not that we don't enjoy what our friends have to say, and many of them have wonderful advice. It's, at least from my perspective, more about, I feel like a lot of writing podcasts are guests every week, and it becomes very routine, and there's not much difference, and you're asking the same questions and getting a lot of the same answers sometimes. And this is more you and me tracking the production of our books and our lives. And so, like, a guest would feel a bit disruptive. That said, if we do have a guest on, no, like, we ran out of topics.
100%. Someone that stitched this episode with the guest. The other thing is, I love how you're approaching it from what's best for the listeners. I think of it purely selfishly, which is like, I am in St. Louis where there are no people. And so this is like my one piece of human contact and therapy every week. And I feel so much better after, and the listeners are kind of irrelevant. So to then add guests and all these things takes away my hour of happiness.
And also a little bit selfishly and a little bit of a peek behind the industry curtain. We're very upfront about, like, this podcast is about us and our books and is kind of like advertising those things.
Yep.
We don't want like, people bring on guests like, oh, their book is coming out, let's advertise their book. And we're like, this is not your space.
On that note,
This is our platform. Hi, I'm Victoria Aveyard, author of The Red Queen and the Realmbreaker series.
And I'm Soman and Victoria, author of the School for Good and Evil series, and welcome to Plot Twist, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the biggest swings in our careers. Victoria's Tempest, her very first novel for adults, an epic pirate fantasy.
And Soman's Young World, a red-hot young adult political thriller. Each week, we go behind the curtain of our creative process, and we give you our hot takes on thorny issues in publishing and entertainment. We answer your mailbag questions, and we pitch plot twists that we want to see in real life.
And today's hot topic, a complete swerve for us, is writing actually a sport? And it's
Catch me on ESPN 8. The Ocho.
Yeah, we probably burn more calories using up our brain power in some of
That's
these books.
literally not true, Soman. If that were true, I would be such a skinny legend. Shut up.
Evolution didn't work properly. All right, well, let's go on to our first segment. Theme of the week, where each week we're going to come up with a word or phrase that encapsulates the essence of our week on and off the page. Do you want to start this week?
Sure. My theme this week is the finish line for now. I am turning in the second draft of Tempest, hopefully this afternoon. So right after we finish recording, I'm diving back into, I have like 2 more chapters to read and then a couple little notes to myself to pepper back in. And then it's getting sent out of my inbox, which means I get to have champagne tonight.
That's crazy. I mean, that's such a big moment because, so just, I like to quantify everything. When you send in this draft, what percentage do you think it's going to be close to the final version?
Pretty close. So I say the finish line for now because, as we know, the book is far from done, but every mountain we climb gets a little bit lower. And I do have one more round of developmental edits in the production schedule. So there are a couple of things where I'm like, that might be a problem for future Victoria.
Yeah.
And I'm putting it in storage until it attacks me in a few weeks. And then there are a couple of things where I'm like, I sort of don't know how I feel about this part. I can't tell if it's a good ad or a bad ad, or if I need my editor to weigh in and let me know, like, no, this is actually working, or actually here's how we can adjust or shift this. Um, the good thing is I feel really on track and very, very
Mm,
organized. With edits, I do have my Excel sheet that I keep telling you about, so
yeah.
I can sort of track my progress and physically see how much I have left and structure my time properly. I do much better in this part of the process, and I don't usually have to pull like very late nights or
Mm.
weekends, at least for now. And I maybe just jinxed myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, as far as how much of it will change, from the first draft even, for almost all of my books, I would say 90 to 95% is the same.
That is so high.
I know, and it almost makes me worry because I hear people talk about their editorial relationships, and some people write 0 drafts, which is just some people write just, like, dialogue drafts,
Yeah.
and I think, "What do you mean? You're just, like, leaving so much work for yourself." Like, I'd rather suffer as much as possible upfront.
One day we'll do an episode just on drafting because I think
Mm.
people will be interested in the different versions of our process, where
Yes, yes.
you're so good about planning and outlining, so that you end up in this position where there's not much to revise. Ironically, I get to the same place you do when I have a finished draft, which is by the time I give it to my editor, it's going to be 90 to 95%. But I revise as I go along
Mm.
because I don't have an outline. So it's a totally different way of getting to the same conclusion that I think will be interesting to discuss. How are you feeling in terms of um, just energy level and everything like that? Because after the draft was done, I remember you wanted to like crawl into a hole and
I
disappear
feel
for a while.
much better, and I almost I feel like I don't really wanna take that much when the draft finished, I was
Mm,
like, "I need the time off,"
yeah,
like, my brain is dry.
yeah.
But this one I feel like, "Okay, I am not spent in a way in which I need to fully recharge," but I am looking forward to not looking forward to, I'm gonna turn in my draft today, and I'm gonna clean my garage tomorrow.
And when does it come back? Like, how long do you get?
Great question, I don't know.
Mm,
But I know that we wanna be in copy edits by the end of September before I leave on my Euro tour.
okay.
So, that means I have, August and most of September to have my editors turn it around and get it back to me for me to do one more
Yeah.
sort of polish.
Yeah. So you're almost there. You're almost there.
Ugh.
All right. Well, I wish
What's your
mine was. I
theme?
wish this it was celebratory and involved champagne. Even though champagne, this is such a little girl. It goes to my head. I'm like one of those like
Oh, you have the green tea at the bar, which, by the way, has become very chic. You were ahead of the curve.
the matcha latte.
No, I go to bars with you and you get, like, a hot tea.
Oh yeah. I can't champagne always from when I was you always have those like very kind of princessy girls who are like champagne goes to my head.
Of
That's
course it's you.
exactly how I feel. I just feel like it literally goes to my head and I'm
You
gonna
need a
faint.
fainting couch just following you around like a familiar.
I told Scott I want fainting goats, because
No.
if you've ever seen one, they're amazing. I mean, you
Well, aren't
just
they narcoleptic? Is that the thing? Or they get
they
scared and they pass out?
yes, they have a high anxiety level, and they have a nervous stomach. And the moment you scare them, they just pass out as a, like an evolutionary trick to be like, "I'm never going to be able to get away from this predator. Let me just play dead." So it
That's
literally
the
is
animal of your heart.
100%. So he refuses to get them, and his excuse every single time is it's embarrassing. Like if people see fainting goats on my farm, like my reputation in town is ruined, which I don't think is a valid
Is this
excuse.
a metaphor for you?
I told him, I said, you should just do it because you love me. And he's like, no fainting goats.
You found the line.
He found the
This is
line.
meatloaf's I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. And the answer is fainting
Fainting
goats.
goats. My theme for the week is grinding through because it's been a absolutely brutal heat wave in St. Louis. I mean, we had 14 days plus straight of 90-degree temperatures, and every
And it's
morning
humid too, right?
super humid, like 90 to
Ugh.
95% humidity every morning. And I'm playing tennis in a no AC, indoor, stuffy bubble, 100% humidity every morning, and then working out in the afternoon in the heat. And that combo
Barf.
kind of leaves you in this like delirium, which I actually kind of love, because you're so kind of bleached out and tired that you can't really get in your own way. So I almost feel like I'm in this rhythm of like writing, but then waking up the next day and I'm so kind of like heat stroke that I don't remember what I like. There's no accumulation of fatigue or like anything. It's just like every day is like, survival in the Sahara.
You're
Um,
a freak.
it's weird. So it's just about grinding right now. And then on top of that, we're grinding through this new puppy phase with Lola, who I talked about
Oh
last week,
God.
Lady's replacement, who pretends to be potty trained and then like she'll be potty trained for 5 days and then for 3 days decide that that never happened.
Oh.
So
Does she still have puppy breath?
yes, she is. Here's another funny thing about
Mm.
Lola that you will love, which is when we got her, the owners were like, please feed her this. This is what she's used to. And it was like this bag of kibble. And I was like, of course. And then when I got home, I'm like, never. And we have this like artisanal brand and stuff that's like flown in by jet plane or whatever. And we give it to her with the artisanal kibble. And we ran out. We're waiting for the next delivery. And
Oh
so I
God.
put half of her old food in with it. And she picked out each of the old food one by one and left it aside and wouldn't touch it.
Indy has done that. Because we're in a similar boat where now we have to feed her the artisanal food. She was on kibble for 7 years of her life and it was fine. And now she gets a weighed out mix of human grade venison and pork and quinoa and apples and Brussels sprouts
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah,
carrots.
yeah, yeah. She and all these birdies will have a lot to talk about.
But what about your writing
Okay,
grind?
so I'm in the second act of the fantasy novel,
Mm.
which is, I think, really the grind section, which is
Mm-hmm.
where amateurs usually die because it's so
Yep.
kind of difficult, and the professionals have to actually show that they're professionals. So this is where I have to dig in and really kind of enjoy the ride of figuring out what the second act is. And then on top of that, the Young World Proof came back. And so that's another grind. So,
Ooh.
all the combination of it is you get up every day and you're like, okay, I'm in the hard work phase of every part of my life, whether it's the Young World Proof or the new fantasy book or the Heat Wave or the puppy. And so it's just something you have to enjoy the suffering, as Rafael Nadal, the tennis player, used to say. There's my tennis reference. And so you have to enjoy the grind.
I have to say, I so respect how when you are in the grind of the work, you don't slack on the physical grind. I know we're going to talk
We're going
about
to
it,
talk
but
about that.
just this past 4 days, because I knew my deadline was today, I was like, I'm going to drop the balls that I can drop. And for me, that's like, okay, I'm not going to have a hard workout today because
Mm,
timing wise, I know it's just going to knock me out for an hour and a half, blah, blah, blah. And I can't afford that time and I'm not going to prioritize that thing and I'm not going to beat
mhm.
myself up over not doing that thing. But I definitely was in the chair last night like, oh, I really should have done a yoga
Yeah,
class
yeah, yeah.
today.
We're going to talk all
I
about that.
know.
So much to say, but let's get to our next segment, which
Mhm.
are our goals for the week. Why don't you take us through your goals for
Sure.
last week and tell us how you did on those first?
I did pretty good.
Mm,
My first goal was to be close to finishing the edit. I'm going to give myself an A plus. It's going back today, come hell or high water. Which, to be fair, hell or high water, I don't want to jinx Los Angeles. We had a devastating fires and we had a
mhm,
tsunami watch this week. So I won't use that metaphor again. Um, it was my other goal was I was going away for my birthday
mm,
weekend and I wanted to enjoy myself. I very much did.
mm.
I started reading The Familiar by Lee Bardugo and I'm about halfway through it. I ripped through the first half. It's just so excellent. It's one of those books that kind of gives you hope in the current
Mm.
market. um, it's well written, it's well structured. I love the world, the characters sing, and it means something. There's a much deeper layer to it, and there's much more of a message that I think is very
Yeah.
important. And every scene advances the plot. What a concept.
Mm. I mean, that's rare.
I know, I know. And then my last goal was to get something on the books with my agent to talk about what project I should be looking at next in my sort of stable of projects. And I have a call scheduled with her
Okay,
tomorrow.
you have a call scheduled because we've had
I have a
six
call.
weeks, 6 weeks
Shut
on
up.
this.
That is one thing about like saying our goals every week is it keeps you kind of
I
honest.
know.
And it is also super embarrassing when you see a certain goal carry each week.
But that's
But
just
I
how it
hope that's
goes.
validating to the readers of like, it's
100%.
okay. But
That's how
anyway,
it
so
goes.
I've got a call scheduled with her while also cleaning my garage. And I got a fence guy coming because we're trying to figure out a fence repair. I feel
Mm,
like Soman on the farm a little bit.
homeowning, except I'm not responsible for anything on the farm. I just have my
That's
rented
so
apartment in
nice.
St. Louis that I just
That's
call
so
downstairs.
nice. Sometimes my husband gets like that, but this time with the fence and stuff, he's been very upfront about it.
Mm.
I'm liking it. He fixed a lock. I do keep telling him, "You have to break down my delivery boxes. Like, that's the man's job." And he's like, "No, it's not. Break
That
down
is,
your own
you made
boxes."
that up. hon. That's
You
something I would
haven't
try. I would try.
you haven't seen, maybe it's because I see a lot of, like, female influencer stuff, but they will straight up, like, throw the box in the garage, and it's like, "That's the husband's job," and maybe that's a little bit sexist, but I do want him to break down my boxes.
He
All
should
my friends'
stand
husbands break
firm.
down their boxes.
He should stand firm on this. All right, tell us what your goals for this week.
Okay, my goals for this week, turn in Tempest and take the next few days off afterwards, so, like, Friday and a weekend and maybe 1 or 2 days next week,
Mm,
without any sort of, like, guilt or suffering.
mm,
That'll be nice.
yeah.
Clean the garage, fix up the house, um, and depending on my call with Susie, my agent, tomorrow, I will have sort of a roadmap for what I'm writing after Tempest. So
Mm,
those one sheets was working on a few weeks ago are going to come back to potentially expand. I'm not sure how we're going to approach. Is it going to be another submission proposal situation? Are we going to continue on a relationship with my new editor?
mm,
Is the book going to be adult? Is the book going to be
mm.
YA? I have ideas for both. So lots of exciting conversations to be had.
What percentage do you think next week will be not career related? Like how much will
Mm,
just be you with your, life away from everything writing and how much will still be your job?
this is going to be an interesting one because I will usually, when I turn in a draft, have a good amount of downtime. And
Mhm.
on this one, I actually don't really want it or need it. I'm not
Mhm.
in that space where I feel dead. So I'm hoping I can launch pretty quickly and sort of keep the momentum that I have right now, where the muscle is exercised. I was drafting a whole new chapter yesterday. I wrote like, you're going to kill me.
More?
I wrote a 4,800 word chapter in 2 days,
What? I
and it
got
was really good.
460 words yesterday and thought I was literally king of the world.
And it was really good. So, man, I added like a ball scene, and there's like one of them's in disguise, and one of them knows they're in disguise, but nobody else can know.
Oh my
Oh, it was so
god.
fun. It was so fun. I was just giggling writing it.
I
And you
literally
guys will
like
giggle reading it in a year.
I completely sweat and die over 1/10
But
of
you
what
have
you do.
1/10 consistently.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And we're going to talk about this
Mhm.
in the athletics,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
like accelerate.
All right, and I have one more question for you,
Okay.
which I'm sure is on your mind, but I don't know if you want to talk about yet, which is, you're getting into copy edits. We're heading towards a different phase of the book. When do you start worrying about a cover?
That is it's not really a I mean, worrying about a cover constantly, but I also, when I start writing a book, I sort of have the cover in my head
Mm,
already. Maybe it's a placeholder. And obviously there's going to be a lot more input from the industry side. There's stuff that, I don't necessarily know about trends or what people are gravitating towards, but at the same time, my book covers I think are all going to be pretty similar in that they're very simple and um driven by iconography. So
mhm,
I'm very much thinking of Tempest in that same vein, especially because it's an adult book too.
mm.
Um but that'll be a new experience because I've never had an adult book and I've never gone through the cover process in that way and seen the differences.
But the process hasn't begun.
No,
Oh, interesting.
I know.
I'm sure sometime soon.
I'm sure they're gonna be like, "Here's your cover," and I'm gonna
Yeah.
be like, "Here's
And
my
then
shitty Photoshop. Make it so."
you will come back here and have stuff to report. Okay.
Yes.
My goals for last week. Let's see. Chapter 7 in the fantasy book. Yes, it was honestly my favorite chapter so far. So I was
Hooray.
happy about that. Second, Young World Proof. Uh, no, I haven't even opened it.
Ooh,
I
you haven't
literally wrote
opened
here.
it.
I wrote here. I'm on page. I think I was telling myself I was going to get to page 100. I didn't get to page 100. I got to nothing, zero. So
Did
that's an
you so
F.
you haven't even looked at it?
You know what I did is, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to confess this, but I was on a tech check for this talk I'm going to give, which was an hour-long tech check for a talk that's going to be 20 minutes. And there were other people on the call who were, part of the thing.
Okay.
And I just couldn't, I was just like, I don't need to sit through an hour-long tech check. So I muted it and then pulled up the proof. And for an hour, kind of went through all the pages, looked at all the art, notes
Okay,
and
so you've
everything.
seen it. It's not like an edit letter that
No,
you're just letting sort of
no, no,
languish in
no.
your
I went
inbox.
through and did a full look at, did all my big things get in? Does the design look great? And I was happy enough with it where I was able to now let it sit on the counter until I pick it up. But
It's funny we carry that guilt of being in a meeting and muting and doing something else at the same time
and everybody,
because I need you to know that every single one of my friends who works in like corporate or like a normal job, they're like, yeah, I do so many other things while I'm in meetings. And we're just like, we can't. We have to be like, it's us in the meeting. But
no.
it's
And
so.
then also listening to the tech check where it's like your mic. I'm like, I can't. I just cannot. I
You
cannot.
again, Madonna, she'll do it live. You're showing up and doing the performance.
I was like, I'm gonna
Everybody
do
else
work.
better make it work.
100%. Okay, and then the third goal for last week was on a sort of more complicated note, let go of some of the anger around the lady incident
Mhm.
and be a good puppy parent, even though I thought I was out of the puppy stage. And the truth is, yes and no. This is like a C minus. Like I'm still very angry that it happened and resentful, and I just sort of carry around that little pool of rage everywhere. But there's this interesting thing where Lola, who is Lady's sister, and Remy, who is Lady's son, both look a lot like her. And
Mm,
so your mind starts to, and they act like her too, right? Because dogs really do kind of mimic. And so you start to get confused. And so it's almost like there's times where I just forget. I just think there's Lady. So
right.
I think getting them both has kind of created this interesting hallucination where it almost feels like sometimes the accident didn't happen. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, touch wood, I have not had the experience of losing a dog yet. But from what I understand, the only way to really get around it, or at least get around it more not quickly, but in a faster way than you normally would, is to have another dog.
You just gotta go fast. Yeah, I agree.
But
My mom,
I
my
will
yeah.
say it's quite early for you to be expecting yourself to sort of heal.
Mm. And not
So
be angry because
yeah, yeah, I think don't give yourself a C minus on that. Any progress is an A plus.
speaking of progress. All right, goals for this week. Number one, chapter 8 of the fantasy book. Keep plugging away. Number two, Young World Proof. This feels like your one pagers for your next project. Number
Okay,
three,
so
I get
I
it.
had to do one page. You got to do
Three
300.
more. It's 400. It's now 486 pages. So
Okay,
we will get there.
I believe in you.
Number three. Okay, this is gonna make you laugh. So don't drink anything. Okay, so the Young World cover is done. That went through. I think 42 was the final number revisions. But we
So
need to
many.
design the stained edge. And guess what? We're on
Ugh.
round 20. And no
Okay,
one's
we're
happy.
halfway there.
No
We're
one is
halfway
happy.
there.
Everyone's angry. Everyone's miserable. Like
Well,
multiple designer. I mean,
that's
just
crazy
chaos.
because stained edges, you have so many more limitations into what you can do.
I know, but normally with stained edges, 9 out of 10 times these days, it's for a romantasy or fantasy. And so you're
Right.
doing a pattern, you're doing something. This is a different kind of book. So it just will not work with a sort of classic. This one has to be different. It has to be kind of crazy and bold. And
Did you
so,
look at just doing that beautiful bright orange, or is that not possible for edges?
oh no, we can do it. It's just,
The orange brick would be so cool.
I mean, here's what's funny. When you fail dozens of times, sometimes you end up back at,
You do,
you know,
because you almost feel like beaten down. And I do think, God knows we love our publishing teams. I do think there is an awareness of like, we just have to outlast the author and eventually they'll agree.
we might end up back at the orange brick. And if you do, everyone will come back to this where you
Okay.
finally said it was going to happen. And then the last thing, interestingly, by the time you hear this, you'll see that I launched it. I'm launching this thing called Coach Alpha, which is a 2-night coaching lab for teenagers. I came up with the idea when I was on the Tim Ferriss podcast about a year and a half ago and talked about how I wish I could just go in and work with teenagers on figuring out how not to be robots, literally in the
Mm,
AI future that's coming, how to build themselves to outlast AI as a philosophy and a machine that's going to really take over the world, and to create like a performance lab for teenagers, whether it's applying to college or choosing a career or doing their homework or everything like that, building real teenagers. And it got me thinking, and a lot of people responded when I talked about it in the podcast. And so I'm unveiling a 2-night workshop that I'm going to pilot in St. Louis on September 15th and September 22nd. And we'll see where it goes. Hopefully, I can do it elsewhere too. But my goal is to kind of have this kind of secret performance lab that I work with teenagers for the foreseeable future.
I love that, and I kinda want to, like, sign myself up and sign up every single person I know who just now drops in conversation like, "Oh, I asked ChatGPT," and I wanna be like, "Ah,
It just we're becoming cyborgs little
what
by
were you
little.
doing before ChatGPT?
I'm
Using your
always
little
like,
brain."
whenever I'm bored or waiting for something, I go to ChatGPT Deep Research, and I'm like, let's say I wanted to like lift my neck. What would I do? Give
Call
me.
Kris Jenner, ask for the name.
I know. I actually did look up Kris Jenner's plastic surgeon, and
Me
guess what?
too, I'm down. I'm down for the
Hundreds
lower
of thousands. Okay,
facelift.
not only is he now hundreds of thousands of dollars for whatever
Money well
procedure you want
spent.
to do,
Money well
but
spent.
he won't even consult with you unless you are referred by a celebrity he knows now. So that's our stumbling block.
Boo. Well, we got the in the Beverly Hills medical sphere.
We do?
I do.
Wait, weren't you on Heather Dubrow's podcast?
I was at one point. No, I mean through my husband.
Oh yeah.
We're
Okay, deal.
good.
Okay,
You're good.
we'll
Don't worry
do we'll
about that.
do team facelifts when we're 55, and we'll be in the hotel and
We'll be
running.
on the podcast recording with our bandaged
This
faces.
sounds amazing. Scott literally yesterday was like, "You're not serious about this, you know, about plastic surgery," and I'm like, "Of course not." And then I'm like,
Wink, wink.
wink, wink.
Honestly, my partner's more like, don't do needles in your face. If you want to do something like one of those later on in life, that's probably going to be better in the long term.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't want to inject whatever they're injecting into to people
The
these
fillers
days.
scare me. They move, they
I
expand.
don't think they ever. They're like, oh, they dissolve. I think they stay
They
there
No,
forever.
you have to have them dissolved.
I-
Botox wears off. Botox worries me more because you have to keep up with it, and
yeah,
I can barely keep up with my eyebrows. I can barely floss.
yeah. No, yeah.
But the fillers stay and move, and you get these people who they have like pillow face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I've
Anyway, I
seen
stay
it.
with my green smoothie.
Okay, we're gonna get on to more important topics. Speaking of wellness,
We did pretty privilege already.
oh
Let's get to
god,
wellness.
we will be back with industry nonsense. And we are back with industry nonsense, where we dive into thorny issues in art and publishing that other people might be afraid to touch. And this week's topic is totally different. It is about the athletics of writing. And the question we're asking is writing actually a sport?
Hmm,
And because you are also on deadline this week, I thought maybe I'll take the lead on this. Um,
bless.
because it's also been really super important to me, and sometimes I even get like emotional thinking about like how far I've come on it, because I'll tell you where I was exactly at this time 10 years ago in 2015. I just finished book 3 of The School for Good and Evil. And it really was the proudest thing I'd ever, done at that point in my life in terms of what I'd written. It was a 700-page epic. It had 150 characters, brought the whole series together at that point. And I should have been over the moon with joy. I mean, it really was an accomplishment, that book. But I was broken. I was 6 foot tall, but I was 118 pounds. I had ulcers, chronic pain, migraines, acne, everything. I was like the most productive beast, but I had kind of run out of gas physically, and I also had
Hmm.
no connection to my body at all. And when I went on tour for the book, I remember I stopped into an acupuncturist in San Francisco, this, very wise old Chinese man who said, "You are weak emotionally, physically, and spiritually." And the way he said it at the time, I remember it was almost like Morgan Freeman in a movie appearing to tell you, like, you have fucked up. Like, like I remember crying because it was like,
Oh,
I'm 33. I have no stamina, no strength. I've written 3 books, and yet I have no energy to do another one. Like essentially I'm done. Like I'm finished. And the dude was really right. So I sort of made a pledge to myself of, if I'm going to do another book, which at that point I didn't know what I was going to do or what I wanted to do. Like I just was at an end stop. I said, I'm going to change things. So I got back, hired a trainer in New York named Dave Stogsdill at CrossFit in NYC. And I hired him because I went through all 20 headshots on the website, and he was the softest, nerdiest guy, like in terms of headshots. It was almost
I
like,
feel that.
me on Hinge looking for the right kind of trainer.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect choice. For 5 years we worked together. When I got there, I couldn't barely do a push up. I couldn't back squat the empty bar. I couldn't bench press the empty bar. I couldn't do a pull up. I couldn't do anything. And the worst part,
Someone I can't do a push-up.
I know, but a boy
I can't do a
should.
push-up on
Oh.
my knees.
But the worst part about all that wasn't just that I was weak and couldn't do those things. It was the tension in my body. Every muscle wasn't
Yes.
just weak, it was like tight as a bone. And Dave told me later, years later, he's like, every time, because he was very physical and hands-on and trying to get me to try to like be able to move the
Mhm.
right way. And he said he would get nauseous just poking around my body because he couldn't believe how like kind of densely tight everything was. So about 2 years in, he sort of had an epiphany where he's like, I think the reason everything's such a mess is because your body is in permanent startled pose, like a
Mhm.
scared cat, where the shoulders were hiked up, the tailbone was hiked back, almost like I was in frozen trauma from such a
Mm.
young age that I had kind of been sealed into a concrete block that way, like fossilized that way. And so once he figured that out, we started going from that place. I started going back to therapy. And then at the same time, we were working with a lot of, body adjustments and things like that.
Right.
And so a couple sessions I had to miss because I had started working on a new book that I ultimately never published. And Dave was like, very stern about it. Like, we can't have you missing. Like, this is now your full-time job. Like, you did your 3 books. Your full-time job is being human. Writing is just your hobby for right now. Something about that, like the switch, like he wasn't taking an argument on it. And I was like, oh, that actually hit really hard. Like, for right now, writing
Crack
is
the
just my
whip.
hobby. Yeah. And to this day, that way of thinking never changed. And over the next decade, my physical practice really stayed consistent and almost deepened. Dave moved to Austin, but then I had a new coach, Ben Foster at People's Athletic Club, who everyone in New York should use. And then Ben had to do virtual workouts during COVID, and I still kept up even after I moved to St. Louis. I went through trainers here. I also went back to playing tennis, something that I always loved when I was younger, but gave up in New York because who can play tennis in New York?
Rich
The
people.
amount of patience and stress and money it takes, it's impossible. But a new routine started to take shape, which was my old routine used to be eat breakfast, right all the way to like the end of the day, watch TV or something, and then go to sleep. I mean, it was just sort of very sad. And the new routine was like tennis at 6 or 7 a.m., write, then eat lunch, go lift with Dave or whoever, write again, and then do something social. And it was super balanced and it started to become quite sustainable.
Mm.
And so somewhere along the line, I started thinking of myself less as a writer and more as that full-time human athlete. And writing was just part of the athletics. And to be able to produce novel after novel and also do all the other stuff we have to do as writers, including touring, you don't just
Mm.
have to be in shape, you actually have to be in absolutely peak physical condition, especially for middle grade writers who are doing school
Yeah,
visits
you
where
do.
it feels like a presidential campaign every time you're releasing a book. So how else are you supposed to do all these things unless you're really fit and in shape, and not break down physically. So the athletics of art are honestly why I think I actually love being a writer so much now, because the tennis and the lifting and the physicality of training is also what gets me out of my head and back to being fresh and looking at the thing in a new way. And I
Mhm.
actually think it saves me time ultimately. And it also connects me to the source of where all things come from. And so to this day, I never have missed a tennis, session or a workout because of a writing deadline. I just won't allow it because I think of that as my real job. I will find a way to get the writing done, but being a functional human, I will not miss. And so the last point, before I know you're gonna have some awesome things to tell us too, is that a couple books that I think people should look at if they're interested in sort of the philosophy of this. Kazuo Ishiguro, who wrote The Remains of the Day, also wrote a book called What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. It's very short, but it's a short kind of life-changing read about how his writing and running are completely in tune with each other, the same way that I think, my athletic journey is with my writing. And then Built to Move by the legendary Kelly and Juliet Starrett, who trained Obama and Biden, who I'm lucky enough to have as kind of friends and mentors and have taught me so much about what it means to be human. And that means balancing work with also the physicality of doing that work.
You know, we should all be so lucky to have an old, wise Chinese acupuncturist tell us what's wrong with us. I heard you say that, and I was like, "Wow, I feel like I need that." But at the same time, if a trainer was to say to me, "No, you don't get to miss anything, like, this is your priority,
Mm.
not your book," I'd be like, "I will never see you again."
Yeah, yeah. It
But that's
requires
the 2.
trust. Yeah, it
It
requires
does, it
trust.
does. Um, I am always so impressed with your dedication. No matter where you are on tour, traveling, you somehow always manage to
Mhm.
make the time to train at usually an ungodly hour. I
Yeah.
envy your grit so much. I absolutely do not have the will for it, but I think I should. Like, it's very aspirational.
Well, here's one more thing I would put out. I didn't start this journey, everything, until I was older than you are.
Right? Yeah.
So
But
the
it was inspiring to hear you didn't start this way.
Mhm.
It gives me hope that I too can one day
Yeah.
be pulling 2 a days and playing high level tennis, which my husband would really enjoy if I
Yeah,
could
yeah,
play
he
high
would
level
actually.
tennis. Or at the very least, just prioritizing fitness every day so that I can keep doing what I do. And
Mm.
that's the real crux of it is like
Mhm.
we're doing these things so we can do this other thing. I do completely agree that the exterior, the physical upkeep, the care for ourselves is really integral. Integral or integral? I always pronounce it the wrong way.
I say in a girl.
Okay, integral.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna say it's integral, you swine. It's important for the interior, not just mentally, but for our bodies.
Mm.
This job is so brutal on
Mm.
our backs, our wrists, our necks, our eyes. I
Yes.
don't think either of us know anyone who has done this job for very long without developing an injury or
Mhm.
sort of chronic pain. Personally, I know I started seeing a masseuse pretty regularly because an author friend of mine was like startled that I didn't.
Mm.
And then I realized like, oh, a lot of people are doing this and it's very helpful to them. I've done stints in physical therapy. Also, a recommendation from an author friend who was like, here's the physical therapist who saved me. And then they
Mm.
did the same thing for me when I destroyed my lower back and when my wrist pain started
Mm.
flares up. I know what stretches to do. I travel with muscle relaxants
Yeah.
now in case I throw my back out again. I know what exercises really let me do something that seems so easy and sedentary. Like we're sitting in a chair and we're typing, but it is so damaging to
Mm.
us. I've got wrist braces and CBD creams and blue light glasses. I have several different standing desk
Mm.
apparati. No, that's not a word. I have typing gloves. They all help, but they aren't treating the cause. They're just treating the symptoms. And the
What
cause
does typing gloves do?
it really helps when my hands are hurting. They're technically for arthritis, but it's
Okay.
like a compression glove.
Aha. That makes
And
sense.
it takes a second to get used to them, but then they feel really nice. All of this doesn't treat the cause, it treats the symptoms. The
Yeah.
cause is, of course, the thing we do hurts,
Mm.
and the pace at which we do it hurts even more. Um, you'll hear a lot of authors talk about tip-ins,
Mm.
which can be debilitating, if not permanently disabling. Tip-ins are essentially when you are asked to sign quite a large amount of loose paper that is then going to be bound into your books.
Mm.
Um, they're a privilege to do. It's a huge deal to be asked to sign tip-ins either for an account like Barnes and Noble. Say like all of the Barnes and Noble books from that first print run are going to be signed, or it's a book box, or you could be doing an entire print run
Yeah.
of a book. There are authors who do 50,000, 100,000, 300,000 tip-ins. And every time I see that announcement, I'm like, holy shit, that is insane to me. That would harm me for life. And I
Yeah.
know authors who can no longer do tip-ins. We pretty much across the board say no over a certain level. They are horrifically damaging. I kind of hope they disappear.
Mm.
I hate that there's like still this expectation. Um, the time, the energy, the risk that we run when we
Mm.
do tip-ins, I don't think they're worth it. And
Mm.
I would hope readers like don't want us harming ourselves for them. And there's been, I can't remember which book box it is, but they're transferring to digital signatures, and everyone's been really lovely about that. And I'm happy about that trend. Um, I am really grateful to my husband who is a hamster in constant need of a wheel.
Mhm.
And he has sort of hacked my brain where now I do feel like a slug if I don't get in a workout. Not lifting and high level tennis, but just something
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in every day. And I can tell how much worse my pain is when I don't work out, especially yoga.
Mhm.
Whoa. Um, which is great. And my husband's like instructor level good at yoga, and I'm over here with my blocks and his legs are up in the air. But it works and it helps, and I hate that it helps. Like, how
Mm.
dare you be good for me?
Yeah.
What a scam. Um, there's also the interior health. It is such a privilege to travel for this job, to tour, to meet a lot of readers, to get to see you at events. But I think in the wake of COVID, we're really a lot more aware of the cost that that takes
Mhm.
too. It used to be you would just accept, like, oh, I'm going to get sick after a tour or a con or whatever. And now we think, we shouldn't be thinking that way. So I still travel with a mask on. I have my wipes. I have my hand sanitizer. I have my vitamin C. I carry a pharmacy with me. I carry Paxlovid when I go on the road
Mm.
now, because we don't want to get sick. And sometimes getting sick can really harm you in the long term.
Yeah.
And of course, all this physical health feeds the mental health, and the mental acuity is what we are shooting for. I have really noticed with Tempest, I am getting old and I can't pull the same days that I used to pull, and not just my hands or my back. I like can't count on my eyes
Yeah.
to do a screen all day anymore. And I can't count on a tension headache not like ripping up my schedule. And it's very humbling and perhaps a sign that stepping back or slowing down is something I need to do. But of course, I feel more pressure than
Mm.
ever to speed up.
Yep.
And we talk about this every week. The pressure to produce is very much still there.
Mm.
And there is another layer to this athletic metaphor. I find the writing brain is a muscle too.
Mm.
It needs to be exercised like a muscle. And for me, that means like ramping up production. You don't just start running marathons. I will never run a marathon.
Me either.
But you do have to train up to them from what I'm told.
I
And I
from what I hear, running marathons is wonderful and everyone loves it and it gives you this huge sense of accomplishment, but it also leads to like heart leakage and you die
you
sooner.
shit yourself in front of a patrol of dads in very short
We are going
shorts.
to get more comments about that one line than anything we've said so far. Everyone who's ever run a marathon is coming hard
I
for
don't
us.
care. I don't care. The only thing I could think about, the only motivation I would have to run a marathon is to then turn around and go eat 14 cheeseburgers. Like, that is the only reason I would do it, so that I could go eat whatever I wanted without any guilt. That is the only reason. I do not care. Wrap me in the little space blanket, send me to In-N-Out.
I can't run unless there's like balls. Oh, I can hear Scott saying it right now. There goes your social life.
Twist,
I could
Scott's a
hear
big
it.
Clueless fan.
He was waiting for that moment. I can feel it. He's listening to it right now, saying, "Oh, yeah, go chase your balls." All right, keep
But
going.
similar to a marathon, from what I'm told, with writing, you train up to a certain level of production.
Mm.
I do that. I accelerate as I get deeper into the
Yes.
work. I joke that
Yes.
I'm like the Usain Bolt of writing. I'm still speeding up as I
Mm.
hit the finish line. So for me, that looks like starting writing days, my early writing days are like 500-word writing days at the
Mm.
beginning. And every day gets a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And by the end of the draft, I'm in those 7 to 8,000 word days,
Mm.
which you feel really proud of, but you're like, this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can't do that right off the bat. And before we wrap this up, I must add, we are both approaching this from the perspective of able-bodied people.
Mm.
There is absolutely chronic pain that we both deal with, but we're still very privileged in where we are health-wise. So there's even more variables to consider that we don't talk about, and limitations on people who can't easily type all day or sign or travel. Like the travel element, to be able to do it as part of our job, you are already in a very privileged space to
Mm.
physically be able to do that. But anyway, I really envy Soman and his discipline. I want it. I don't have it. I will probably never have it. But I do encourage anyone sort of looking for the sign to make the small changes, to prioritize not just the work, but you physically. Like, please do it.
Mm.
I'm sorry, yoga does work. And I was very, very proud of the moment where I realized I could easily touch my toes, or when I realized I can type while standing. My next goal is a walking pad. I think it will solve all my problems.
Ooh. I mean, that's a walking pad does sound nice. I mean, one of the things I was thinking about too, as you were, talking about your journey also is that
Ranting.
I feel, no, I mean, what I think is interesting is that I have given so much, I mean, hours a day to do my two workouts, right? Like probably 4 hours a day with all the travel and everything. I don't think I write less. I feel like the exercise ends up clarifying you in a way where you actually write faster and smarter.
Don't tell me that.
But even like, have you noticed that when you come back from a workout, you're able to see the problems much clearer?
No.
Because I feel like when do you work out? In the middle of
It
the
depends. It
Okay,
depends.
okay.
Sometimes I'm a morning workout. Sometimes I do my workout after I finished everything I need to do for the day. And I usually bounce between a Peloton spin, a yoga. I do the Tracy Anderson weighted Pilates, which is really good, but I have to
Yeah.
put in my own music because her music is garbage. Or if I'm on an off day, I walk 5 miles.
Mm,
And I usually, the walk is the most helpful to the work because
yep.
the walk, I listen to music, I plan, I write in my head as I go, but that's my off day.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I would say that to me, the workouts create this clarity that then afterwards I want to run back to the draft and at least read it because I
Mm,
have this like, so Joan Didion used to do this, not with workouts necessarily, but she'd go to lunch and do her stuff or whatever. And then at the end of the day, she'd have an hour and a half from 5 to 6:30 every day, I think, where she'd come back and read the draft again because the distance gave her clarity that she just
mhm.
wanted before she shut down for the day. So I think that's part of the whole thing is that like I'm always trying to be like, okay, how do I have fresh eyes? How do I have fresh eyes? And I
Yeah.
can get that through the
I
workout.
think my problem is that I am so sensitive and precious about my time
Hmm.
because I have a hard time working if something is hanging over me. Like if I have an appointment at 2
Yeah.
and I sit down to work even at 10, the clock is already ticking in my
Yes.
head.
Yes.
I
Yes. Yes.
hate
Yes.
having that ceiling of that thing looming over me. And I know I shouldn't be working like this. I know I should be able to just snap right into it, but it does take me a like good hour to get into the mindset of the work.
This is fascinating. I think it's so good that we hit this nerve, which is you need the open runway
Mhm.
in order to get there.
Yeah.
I need the
You need
bursts.
concentrated pieces
I
of
need the
time.
bursts that
Yeah.
are separated by physical activity. And
Mhm.
so I think you have to know that as a writer. Like if you are an open runway writer, my method is going to make you insane. Like it will
Yes.
make you insane. Whereas too much open time, I I feel like I don't get anything done. Like I struggle with it.
Yeah, but I have heard from friends who were like me, open time writers, and I kind of experienced it a little bit too when Indy was a puppy and
Yes.
she was sleeping off and on, and you were like either on top of her or she's asleep. I have 45 minutes to
Yes,
write.
yes, 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 yes.
And then to a much larger extent of the metaphor, when you have children, and my friends who are authors who have had a child are like, suddenly I have so much less time to write, but I'm so much more productive in those windows of time. And I just think that sounds like my nightmare. And I
And
don't know if I could survive that.
that opens up a whole line of questioning, which we're going to save for a future episode when we talk about drafting
We're
and how
not
to
gonna
start.
have a writing with kids episode because neither of us can talk
And
about that.
100%. And also just how to structure your time. I love that idea is
Mm.
something we will discuss, but we will leave it there for now. Writing is officially an Olympic sport now. I expect a medal.
We would not even meddle.
We're going to get our little Olympic ring tattoos
Oh my
and I'm going to hang
god.
out with the
So, but
diving.
we're not even on the team. Come on.
I'm going to hang out with the divers. You go do whatever you're going to do.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
we'll be back with some of your questions this time. And we are back with the reader mailbag, where we answer two of our favorite questions from the week. Not, are you going to have guests? As one of the questions. First question is from Kerrigan. What are your thoughts on celebrity authors and other big authors using ghostwriters and claiming the work as their own? I can start this one off because I'm really
Mm.
curious about your thoughts, which are to me, the key is just that the public knows this is happening
Mhm.
and that the author credits the ghostwriter in some way. Andre Agassi had the most gorgeous book called Open and then was very, clear about the fact it was ghostwritten by the same guy who did Prince Harry's memoir. So even if it's just the first line, the acknowledgments or, whatever, as long as it's obvious who wrote the book, I get crazy when a celebrity writer or someone on, damn Real Housewives pretends like they wrote the words down, like they sat at a computer and actually wrote them.
Use your words, writer girl.
That makes me want to jump off a bridge, and vice versa, accusing a writer who actually did write them.
Yes.
But actually, Victoria and I had a funny dinner party encounter with someone who was a ghostwriter for a famous supermodel who you all know, who tried her hand at a novel, and the supermodel actually ended up firing the very, very qualified and successful ghostwriter and writing the novel herself, which is probably why the book is like legendarily weird.
Mm. I don't really, because this was a great question, but I was sort of like, huh, I haven't really thought about this because I figure ghostwriters are such a given with celebrity authors. I
Mm.
always just assume there's one in the mix. unless it is a very big part of the promotion that the celebrity wrote it themselves. And then if it turns out they didn't, I'm like, oh, screw you, burn them at the stake. Like, that's
Mm.
bullshit. Why would you say something that is a lie that you don't even need to lie about? That's what
Mhm.
makes me crazy. It's the same thing with like someone saying, oh no, I've never had plastic surgery. And it's like, your nose is different. You don't need to lie about
It
this.
was
There's no reason to.
olive oil and red wine is what
Oh my god. But I agree there absolutely should be credit, and I don't understand why there wouldn't be because again, I'm not assuming that Kendall and Kylie wrote a dystopian YA book all on their own, you know? So
Yeah.
someone else helped. Their name should be on the cover too. I don't understand how that would like affect anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good to think about. All right. The second question from Sophia: while writing a series, was there ever a point where you fell out of love with it and didn't want to finish the rest of the books, but you had
Mm,
to? How did you get the series done? I mean, my quick answer to this is I just could never allow this to happen because that would have been absolute death
mm,
for me. So, to protect against that, I always found a way to make each book in the School for Good and Evil series a huge creative challenge by messing with the previous book.
mm,
So, or pushing the story to a place I almost thought would be impossible to get to, setting up this like mountain of challenge, so that there was no way to go into autopilot. So specifically in School for Good and Evil, for those 6 books, every book tackled a set of binaries that I wanted to explore: good, evil, boys versus girls, young versus old, past versus present. And with those binaries, it changed the tone of the book, the theme, the color
mm.
scheme, even sometimes the world. And it let me have kind of the mischief of blowing up a completely new set of stereotypes in our society. So I think it's really about structuring in a way where you're just not going to be repeating the same thing again and again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only moment I came closest to this was after I had finished Warstorm and which was the end of the Red Queen main series. I still had a book under contract
Mm,
and I was playing with the idea of doing short stories in the Red Queen world because I still felt there was some juice there and some characters I wanted more time with. Not to mention I would get a chance to flesh out the world and do sort of my like guide to the world I was so excited about. My publisher was all for it, and I stuck in. And for a few weeks, I wondered if I had made a mistake and if there was actually no juice left.
mm,
And it just took me getting back into the groove. And especially, I included a short story of brand new characters in a different part of the world.
mm,
And that felt like changing the lens and sort of refreshing everything in my mind and having that moment where, oh, wait, it's not backwards and forward, it's up and down too. Like you go from the X and Y axis to the Z
mm.
axis. I do believe that the publication schedule can sometimes suck the joy out of a series, and you're doing things on very quick timelines. Your turnarounds are not conducive to the ideal creative process. So I can understand having the love beaten out of you by the demands of the business side. But if the love is pushed out of you because you're no longer in love with the story itself, like that would be really hard to push
That's
through.
a different thing. And I'd always tell authors, if you are being pushed to the point where you're starting to
Hmm.
sour on your own work, that's where you got to stand up and be like,
Or
things have
figure
to
out how do
change.
I change the lens?
Yep,
How do
100%.
I backflip instead of keep moving forward?
All right. Well, send us your questions to our reader mailbag at mail@plottwistpod.net, PLOTTWISTPOD.net. And our last segment of the week, the plot twist we want to see in the
Hmm.
real world. Okay. So we went to the vet and we asked her the question that we talked about last week, which are, can we take Lady's half sister Lola and her son Remy, and can we breed them?
This
And
is some House of the Dragon Targaryen
the
nonsense.
vet was like, first of all, the vet is like rural Missouri vet. So, the fact she was like totally fine gives me some pause. But the the issue is she said there's a bigger thing that we're not considering, which is that with house dogs, when they're together, they many times, many times, don't actually want to breed, that they get too familiar with each other and lose attraction. And that blew my mind. The idea that these two dogs get so familiar that they no longer want to mate, even if they're in heat. And I was like, is this a thing for like all animals? Then, like,
I think it's a biological thing to like stop inbreeding in packs.
so it's not a human. Because then I was like, why are humans living together?
I mean, maybe some humans are like, I just cannot be monogamous.
I was like utterly rocked. So then she's like, I was like, well, how do we prevent that? She was like, oh, there's a way around it. And she's like, I can just get Remy's sperm and then I can artificially inseminate Lola. I was like, what? She's like, but hopefully they stay attracted to each other. So anyway, if you have any ideas how to keep these two liking each other.
Don't
And
send in ideas about
also,
breeding.
we are eagerly awaiting your pup twist photos, which I'm sure will be popping up in our mailbox very soon. Okay, your turn.
I'm not going to touch the dog breeding. I do have a Soman delusion.
Oh my God, yay.
My plot twist. I want to be able to freeze time.
Mm.
Not to be a complete loser, but sometimes I think about the hyperbolic chamber from Dragon Ball Z. You don't know what Dragon Ball Z is. You don't know what Dragon Ball is. Okay, it's an anime.
Okay.
From like the 90s and early 2000s about aliens and okay, whatever. I will not explain Dragon Ball Z to you. But anyway,
I'm with you.
They have these like warrior aliens who look like humans, but they're called Super Saiyans. And they go to train in the hyperbolic chamber because time passes differently in the chamber. So they can go in and train for years inside. Also, the gravity is different, so they get like really strong. They train for years inside, and it's like only a few days have passed outside. But now they're like ready to fight whatever evil alien is threatening the Earth.
I want this too.
Right? So I want to do that for writing books and not bodily fitness.
I want it for fitness.
Like I want to be dropped on, what is it, the interstellar planet with Matthew McConaughey, or no, the reverse of the interstellar planet, because they were down on the planet for like 10 minutes and the guy was up in the space and he was like, I was alone for 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't want that. Don't ask me about the logic of Interstellar. Also, another plot twist, release the Epstein files, bitch.
Oh my God, we will do a special commentary episode if they ever are.
We absolutely will not. What the fuck are you on? We're not doing that.
On our non-existent Patreon. Oh God. Okay, if you want to find us elsewhere, there's no Patreon. But you can find me at my very confessional emotional Substack diary every week, or on Instagram at SomanC. How about you?
You can find me on TikTok, Substack occasionally, and Instagram.
And not Threads.
Not Threads.
She's still holding firm.
You know, the detox for the last 2 weeks of editing is going so well. I'm sort of like, I don't miss it that much. So everything like cross posts there, but for the most part, I'm not checking in, and I feel like it's a good weight to shed a little bit.
Let's keep it going. You won't find her there, but guess what? You'll find her here next week. See you guys there.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Plot Twist is hosted by Victoria Aveyard and Soman Chainani. It's produced and edited by Liam Billingham. Our logos, art, and graphics are by Michael Blank. The music is by Thieves and Louis Adrian. Production support from June Secchia.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to Plot Twist wherever you listen to podcasts and drop us a review to let us know how we're doing. See you next Thursday.